Hey guys, I'm in the garage, June 28th, Sunday, and on Friday we just found out that our local track, Atlantic Motorsport Park, for our road racing stuff, and track days and high performance driving days and time attacks, everything else, is opening on July 1st, Canada Day. So that means I have to get my car ready, I have to get Kayla's car ready, and there's still a few things I have to do because I've been procrastinating, because up until just 3 days ago or 2 days ago, it didn't look like we were going to get any track day until August. So that's some exciting news, and I'll show you what I got to get into. So one of the couple things I have to work on today, try to get this thing ready. It's more of a comfort level thing. I wanted to move the seat back a little bit. Last year I put a steering wheel extension on, and that was great, moved the wheel closer to me, and that's why before even I had that, I moved the seat like forward quite a bit just so I had a good reach on the steering wheel. But what was happening was I noticed that my feet were way too close to the pedals. So last year got a steering wheel extension, worked really well, moved the steering wheel very close to me. However, my seating position was still garbage. My legs were all jammed up, and I'm not a tall guy, I'm like 5'9". So it just trying to get that perfect seating position to be comfortable on the track is key. So what it is, I moved the seat back a little bit. Only issue is that I did that over here, but nothing was lining up, so I had to cut that bracket back off. As you can see here, I'm going to remake it and move it over a little bit because that hole wasn't lining up. The other thing that I did was I lowered the steering wheel. So with having the steering wheel extension move closer to me, which is great, it moved it probably 4 inches closer to myself. The issue with that being was it also had the steering wheel up higher, because as you were coming out, the way that the angle of the steering wheel was, it actually moved it up higher as well. So that was like just not great. So the other thing I did is I made a couple spacers to move the steering column down a little bit. And anybody that has a Mark 1 would know, just like 4 bolts that bolt up in there. I can't really show you, it's too tight up in there. But what it is basically is just 4 bolts. I move that down and just use longer bolts to get that back into place, and everything seems very sturdy now. So that's just a couple of things I'm working on today. So I'm going to get working on making another bracket, a new one, and I'll film some of that. So for this bracket, I'm just using a piece of square tubing. It saves me from having to cut flat metal and then bend it. So I'm just going to mark it out, put this on here, mark it out. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tab on here just to overlay on the other rail and get it marked up and cut out and weld it back in place. There we go. Bracket. So I'm just going to clean it up a little bit in here and try to even it out a little bit. Then I'm going to put it into place, mark it, drill it, and then hopefully we'll be good to go. Alright, let's try this again. What I didn't mention earlier actually is the last time I was welding all these in, I ended up catching a couple things on fire, so just trying to not do that by laying in some gloves over some of the stuff that I don't want to catch fire. I'm going to drill that out, or sorry, get this welded in, drill it out, and get the seat mounted for good. So I got the seat in. I sat down, everything feels really good, everything's bolted back up into place, so that's pretty much ready to go. This video is going to be a little bit longer, it's going to be over a few days. Basically today I just want to get the seat mounted back into place, get the harnesses back set up and make sure everything was okay. Tomorrow I'm going to bleed the brakes on both cars and do a quick general go over, make sure nothing looks out of sort, everything's tight, nut and bolted very quickly. And then on Wednesday, which is the track, actually Tuesday, then load up. Generally, I load up my car on the trailer because it's not street legal. And I do that usually the night before we go to the track. And Kayla's car, I get that loaded up as well with the gas jugs and tires and everything else. I'll get some footage of that as well. And then on Wednesday, of course, it's a track day. So we'll try to get a full day of that as well. So anyway, it's going to be spread across a few days, but hopefully you guys will like what you see. Little bit of a tight fit. I'm sweating too. The crotch belt I might have to loosen up a bit because it's a little bit on the tight side. Or maybe I'm just gonna lose a little bit of weight. All right. So as you can see, or as hopefully you can see, seating position's pretty good. Obviously, you're not really seeing much from here, but I'll show you my legs and hopefully you can take a look at that. Although you didn't see before, my knees were pretty much like right up here by the steering wheel. when I was seated and on foot on the brake. Now there's just a slight bend. It's way better. It's extended out further, which is nice, and I still have full range clutch. It's a little bit of a stretch, but it's not going to be a concern. You don't have to go in all the way anyway. And the steering wheel, you always want, sort of general rule of thumb, to be able to lay your wrists over the wheel when you're fully strapped in, and I'm going to have a nice nice bend in my arm as well still. So I think this is pretty good seating position. And although none of this stuff is more horsepower, it won't make the car any faster on the track. Hopefully it'll make myself a little bit more comfortable in seating position, and in turn make myself and the car a little bit more fast. So next up is bleeding the brakes, and that's not going to be actually today. It's going to be tomorrow in real time, but in video time, it's like right now. All right, so as Dave would say, today is tomorrow, or now is tomorrow, or whatever. Anyway, it's the next day from when I said I'd be here the next day. So a little change of plans. Dave made a good point. Tomorrow we're going to pick up the trailer. So Tuesday, the day before the track, pick up the trailer, load the Mark 1, bring it over to the shop, and go over at the shop. Last time it was at the track, we had an issue, I had an issue. Was doing a couple laps, something felt loose in the front end, and it just so happened that the alternator pretty much fell off and hit up against the rad. So we're going to check that out, give it a good go over on the hoist, a little bit easier than doing it on my back, and go over it really good before it hits the track, especially since it's a car that doesn't see the road much. Once we get to the track, we don't want to be troubleshooting things in the pit. We just want to kind of go out and have fun and not have to worry about that type of stuff too much anyway. So the plan for tonight is just to get Kayla's car ready. So mainly what I'll do is I'll do a few time lapse of just maybe bleeding the brakes and just going over a couple things, nut and bolting it. And then I'm going to load up the Touareg with some of the stuff, her wheels and tires, and then maybe some tools and stuff that we need. So I'm going to get started. Jacking the car up, taking off the wheels. I like to have the whole car up in the air at the same time just to go around the brakes. It's easiest to do it that way. I used to be extremely good at keeping my stuff charged. And as you can see, I'm kind of on charge duty with the GoPro, so I'm going to have my mirrorless here. So as you guys can see, these aren't stock brakes for the R32. We went with a Stop Tech kit. 2-piece rotor, 2 true-piece rotor, and also went with a stud kit for this. Makes things way easier for taking wheels on and off at the track. So basically what I'm going to do with this is I take this plate off here, take the pads out, look them over, give them a quick dusting, and then clean all the dust and all the brake dust out of there, and then I start bleeding, and of course I start at the rear corner and work my way forward. And yeah, so anyway, that's the setup there. As you can see, they're the Scale Pro Time Attack suspension with the Swift springs. I'll make sure that all the collars and stuff are tight on those. And on the back, I just take the rear caliper off, check the slider pins. The front, of course, doesn't have any slider pins, but the rear, check the slider pins out, make sure everything's moving freely. Check the pads out, make sure they're not crumbling, and then also check the heim joints on the control arms, make sure everything looks good. All right, so I'm sweating, not even at the front of the car yet. I run a little bit hot sometimes. Obviously you want to go over the brakes just to make sure there's nothing that looks odd, off, gunked up, junky, wore out, the obvious things. And I mean, that's a good thing to do, either, you're on the track, off the track, street driving. It's always good maintenance thing to do. Go over your car, make sure everything looks good. And then sometimes you do find little things you might have been chasing your tail on, and I'll show you right here. So for the longest time, or actually probably 2 years now, we've been chasing this knock in the back. It looks like the collar for the rear spring is actually hitting this aluminum piece that's down in the control arm that I have just to keep the spring in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this over, not now obviously, but when I get back after the track day, because it's not a dire need thing. I'm going to drop the control arm down, take this sleeve out, and run it on the lathe just to take probably an inch off it, because it's not really needed. This is where the car sits. We're not going to raise it anymore really, so I could probably take an inch off that and then not have the issue with it hitting this aluminum piece. So although some of you might think that that would be a little bit of a downfall finding that, I look at that as a big win. It's nothing that's dire that needs to be fixed right now. close to a track day. And I mean, that's why you kind of want to go over this stuff prior to going to the track, just so you don't run into maybe a major issue that may have to be fixed before you go. All right, so as you would have saw, I went over the complete brake system, front and rear, checked the sliders in the rear, made sure all the bolts were tight, any of the hardware back there was tight. Same thing on the front, a little bit different. Didn't have to take the calipers off in the front. I did check all the bolts and the mounting hardware, however. The main reason why I didn't take any of that apart, doesn't really need to be. The pads slide out without having to remove the calipers, which is a huge bonus, especially if you end up running like a more track-oriented pad when you're at the track, and then you can put a street pad in for the way back. I haven't purchased race pads for this yet. I plan on it, as I said in one of the last videos. I also checked the rotors for any cracks, and I checked the pads for any delamination. I also went over the brake lines, made sure everything there was okay. And then another thing I did is I went over the suspension a little bit and made sure everything was tight with the coilovers, and I did adjust the end link as well. So now I'm just going to put a couple liters of fluid in our power bleeder. I just try to use something with a high boiling point. 300 degrees Celsius dry boiling point, which is 572 Fahrenheit. So it's more than enough for what we need, especially for just a lapping day. Power bleeder filled up with that fluid, and just start bleeding the brakes. Power's back on the ground, obviously, and just going to go out and give it a little bit of a beating. Make sure everything's good, and the next thing you're going to really see from me is probably loading this up to bring it over to the shop to give it a really good go over with Dave.
It can spin the tires. Transmission looks familiar. He's lived a hard life.
Actually, they wouldn't know because
They've never seen this. They've never seen my car. Yeah.
But was that the exact same color that's on your MK1?
That is it. Yeah, the whole thing. That's same as the engine in my.
Super cheap to paint it that.
Yeah. The Lambo orange.
Yep.
So what are we doing, Clayton?
Just giving a quick go over, make sure that everything's as safe as it can be for the
Looks
track.
like it's been driven through a lot of puddles.
It's been driven through a lot of stuff, yeah. There's lots of rubber inside the wheels, so maybe take some of that off so it's not shaking too bad right off the bat. And yeah, just a general check all the bolts of stuff that makes it steer and go forwards and hopefully not backwards. And really, that's it. Notice that I have a problem with the rear subframe or rear beam coming loose just in the bushing. You tighten it too much here and it starts to bind up, but you don't tighten enough. I should put a spherical like bearing in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, every track day we gotta check it probably once or twice throughout the day and go from there. Rear valance I made last year. I don't think I only got to try it out like once.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's turn some wrenches.
All right.
What now?
Well,
It's my Marge Simpson.
Well, since I stole the clamp off Kayla's car to finish hers that day we took it out, I remembered to put it back on.
Kind of hard not to remember. As soon as I opened the hood, I looked at it.
Well, yeah. Isn't someone smart? So yeah, basically we just had it up on the hoist, went over everything, made sure everything looked good, which Dave did, eh? Nothing really.
Yep, everything is.
One axle bolt a little loose, but
Yeah,
besides that,
pretty much everything was tight. And so let's talk about the car, Clayton. What is it? What is this thing?
It's an 84 Rabbit GTI, North American model. Had the square headlights and...
Now it's got googly eyes for headlights.
No, it doesn't have headlights. It has googly eyes. They're totally street legal. And we put a 180 out of it. It's like an AWP bottom end or something around those lines, like a newer 180 bottom end. And AEB head, so off one of the earlier 180s. Built the head. It's got rods, IE rods.
Built the head? Come on now.
No, I put the head together.
Yeah,
I
okay.
had the head. I should.
It's
say.
a stock head that's just been refreshed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a refreshed head. I did lop the valves and stuff. I don't think I put new valves in. I put
No, definitely not.
But I did get it pressure checked at one of the places. And Dave built the intake manifold for me. So
Yeah,
it's a big,
I built that a long time ago.
Big port intake manifold, which was like a different styles, so we messed with that and made that. Mishimoto rad.
Big rad in here.
Yep.
Crammed in. Intercooler was probably one off my Rabbit years ago, I suspect.
It might have been,
Yeah.
Well, this rad was actually for your Rabbit.
No, I know the rad was, but I'm talking about the intercooler. And then the turbos, GT3071.
Yeah.
So yeah, Garrett GT3071 ball bearing. Not the GTX, this would be an old school one, but still makes great power really easily. I built a catch can a long time ago. Clayton obviously butchered the firewall to get that down in there.
Yep.
It drains back to the pan, so we don't have any issues up the track with the catch can at all. It's nice and dirty. I like how you cleaned it. It's,
you can't. I used to try to keep it clean, but you can't do anything. I don't have an air blower at home, so I can't blow it down.
So sunroof delete we did like 2 years ago, probably. And show you inside. Clayton probably showed you all this stuff already, but mirror we put on last year. We didn't have that mirror. I got Clayton that for, I don't know, Christmas or something.
Christmas or birthday, thank you.
Apex
ABCR boost controller.
The steering wheel's new.
Yeah, I got that last year.
I know, but I didn't drive it, I don't think, with that steering wheel.
And I lowered it so you get to sit in this.
Yeah.
As they know,
Yeah.
I lowered it and put the seat back, so you'll probably actually be way more
Oh, I built the fuel cell too.
Yeah.
I forgot that. And yeah, so we're getting it ready, and it's basically ready now. So
there's so much more that we didn't cover, but
well, yeah, it's got a Berg cup kit on it.
It's
got a full cage in it, obviously. It's got the rear, I don't think I filmed anything on the bottom. Not much anyways, but how we did the rear
stabilizing bearings?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, well, it's gonna have to go back up anyway because I can bleed the brakes.
Oh, I forgot that.
Bleeding the brakes.
The wing is just some cheap, nasty wing that Clayton picked up.
Well, the funny thing is I wanted to try it before a track day, of course, like leaving everything to the last minute. It was one time, I don't know, what, 2 or 3 years ago now, and I just went on Kijiji and looked for like the cheapest, quickest wing I could get, and met the guy in like Spryfield or something, picked it up, modified it to work, just because we felt as though the rear of this car was getting like extremely light, especially into certain corners, which I'll explain tomorrow at the track, and it helped. So as ugly as it might be, it actually helps. And added a rear diffuser last year, and
yeah, we're gonna re-tackle the wing though.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if we get more track days, we'll probably re-tackle it for this year. Yeah, way out there. But right now, it's what
speed holes.
Speed holes, yeah, in the bumper or in the fender flares.
Decals worth like.
Decals, yeah, definitely worth lots. And it's running Maestro, Eurodyne Maestro 7.
Yep.
It's old AEB stuff, so the software is very limited on the AEBs, but still works, does what we need it to do. So yeah, let's bleed the brakes, and then we'll do an outro, because really
that's it.
That's gonna be it for this one.
So I think this video will be long enough. So yeah, outro after this, and probably new video for tomorrow's adventure.
Yeah, the track day tomorrow. So hopefully the weather's good. It's our first track day, and who knows, maybe our only one. I don't know.
There's another one July 11th. So
yeah,
it's
right
okay.
now until the COVID comes back and ruins everybody.
Shh, can't say that word on here. We're gonna have to beat that out.
Yeah. The virus.
Yeah. Anyway, we went over the entire car, pretty much. Anyway, like probably one of the better, like, good go-overs in a while. Yeah, I think the brake fluid I've already done. Last year, I think when the alternator almost fell out of this thing, I ended up going over the whole car, and then the last track day, I just went out with Kayla in her car. So that's why I think this was as good as it was. It does get a lot of abuse. Things do come loose on race cars and track cars, so it is always a good idea to check them. Anything else, David?
No, we're gonna have some fun tomorrow, hopefully. Get some lapping in, and that's it, I think. So I think that's the end of this video. The next video, we're gonna film all day tomorrow at the track. We're gonna try to anyways, between Kayla's R32 Turbo, for all the people chasing those videos and watching those, and this one. So we'll be filming throughout the day tomorrow. It'll be a little more vlog style. And we'll have some in-car footage, probably with the GoPros. We've got a couple GoPros, and
Yeah,
so
and I'll probably try to get some filming with my mirrorless with Kayla on the track a bit and try to get to some other corners.
Oh yeah.
It'll be hard for you guys to use that camera, but I'll try my best.
Yeah, so that's it for this one. As always, be sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, ask them below. We do appreciate everybody subscribing. But the channel's been around for a really long time, only because I used to just share the odd video with people, but we just really started focusing on making, trying to do weekly videos earlier this year, basically. So I've had a few people message and be like, why don't you guys have more subscribers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and sorry we kind of dropped the ball this month with only having 2 videos, but maybe we'll have, no, we won't have a third up. Yeah, it'll be 2, so sorry.
So yeah, on that note, see you in the next video.
GoPro, stop recording. I'm gonna get the power bleeder. So I'm gonna get the power bleeder. So anyway, we